Good day and welcome to Rocket with Chief, conversations to take you places. My name is Daniel Robus. I'll be your host for today, and it's a little bit intimidating because we've got two principals in the house. If you're as naughty as me at school, this was always a time to start sweating. Luckily, JP and Ryan are both great guys, and I'm not on the mat, they're on the mat. JP, principal of Heronbridge Prep, a Curro school, and Ryan, principal of Crawford Sandton. No one doubts that education provides an unfair advantage in this connected world. There are studies that show how quality education is the key differentiator to paving the path to success. We are often called to the importance of foundational teaching being the building blocks of life. We see many programs where people are helping high school learners get ready for their working lives. But what happens to the middle years, the primary years? Of the 26,000 schools in South Africa, nearly 2,000 are independent schools. There are 400,000 teachers out there and close to 13 million learners spread around South Africa. That's according to October 30th Mail and Guardian. That means there are a lot of learners moving through the cycle. I'm so excited to be diving into the technology aspects of school and more of the understanding of where we've gone since the days of COVID and lockdown and just some of the questions. But first off, let's get to know JP and Ryan. I'm going to start with JP. How the hell do I pronounce your surname?
Differently to the way you did for starters. So it's JP Lubbe. I suppose in South Africa it should be JP Lubbe, but my dad burdened me with the anglicized version of it, so it's JP Lubbe. Dan, thank you for having us, man. I appreciate it. This is always an interesting and exciting topic to speak on.
Thanks, JP. And JP, you guys are in the Four Ways area, and you're responsible for the primary school. Yeah, that's right. So Heronbridge is a fairly sizable campus. We have got kids extending all the way from 2 and 3 years old in our quadruple mode classes, all the way through to our matrics. We obviously are 18. The whole range of schooling, I suppose, sits on our campus. So we're quite fortunate in that regard. We get to see the full development of a kid. Excellent, JP. Why did you get into teaching? Why did you get into education?
Dan, it's a good question because I suppose there are maybe few professions that are as much a calling as education is, and I'm not sure I ever had that calling until I stumbled upon it, and I stumbled upon it while watching a movie, if I'm honest. So I watched the Dead Poets Society and saw the impact that a person could have on another, and I thought, flip, that's something I would love to do. And so I think from their involvement in sports and trying to join in to be able to share that with other people and impact them accordingly is a pretty special moment, I think.
Excellent, thank you, Ryan from Crawford. Ryan, you've also been in education. You've actually walked a path with JP as teachers and moved through the ranks. What is the one thing you wish everybody understood about being a principal before you get too comfortable?
Thanks, Daniel. Nice to kick off with quite a tough question there. I think it's a natural progression. As you say, JP and I, we've been colleagues for many years, and we could swap stories of what happened in our classrooms, and when something went wrong or a discipline issue, or and over the years of us having those conversations, they started to evolve. They started to develop, and I think it became a natural part of our life cycle in education to then eventually move into becoming a deputy principal or head of something, and eventually a principalship. I probably shouldn't joke, but I do sometimes say that I don't think they had anyone better at the moment, so I was the guy that they picked. In terms of the actual job, every day is just so different, and I think it just never gives you everything all in one day. And you do keep coming up, sometimes licking your wounds a little bit, but other days are just magic and amazing, and quite a privilege to be looking after a school of young minds that just make you proud on a daily basis.
Yeah. So Ryan, you are principal of Crawford Sandton. Why did you choose primary education? Why didn't you go for high school?
My entry into education was probably influenced by my father. He was a primary school teacher and deputy and principal, and so for many years I resisted the fact that I would be a teacher. I didn't think that it was my calling in life, I think I got into school or sports coaching on a primary school field, just earning the pocket money, and I think that's what launched me into it. And I think it was just being influenced by my dad, to be a primary school teacher. Obviously nursery school and pre-primary just weren't on the cards for me. And then, the college, I'm quite a small built guy, so the college does scare me because disciplining guys that are taller than you is quite tricky.
We are not dealing with South Africa in the entirety and the education, and we know their challenges in public education. How would you rate our private school education versus the rest of the world, in your opinion?
Sorry, Daniel. Sorry, is that a JP?
Yeah.
No, it's a tough one. It's all yours, Ryan. Go for it. Looks like you got an answer. So Dan, I think it's always difficult to be able to say it empirically. We're dealing with kids, right? So to run them like lab experiments never works out. And so even standardized testing has its biases. Standardized testing has its elements that favors a certain background over another. And so to be able to look at that empirically and say, well, guys, definitely one set of education is better than another is difficult. I certainly wouldn't say that as we are leaders in world education. I think that there are elements, though, of our education that is excellent, and certainly amongst the best in the world. What I would say is that anecdotally, there seems to be a significant amount of evidence that indicates that our kids do really, really well when it comes to tertiary education, wherever they go. And as a school, that really is your benchmark, is how well does your kid do once they've left you. We're primary school heads, and so we always look through the COMA matric results and see how our preppies did in college 5 years later. We look for our, your provincial selections in sport. You look for your excellence on the stage, and you say, okay, cool, that's a kiddo that came through our hands. But I think if we're honest, in the world today, it maybe needs to extend beyond that, and that's how our kids are doing in life. And I think South Africans are known around the world to cope well in life, and I think that speaks to the quality of private education. But I think in some instances, government education as well. I think ex-Model C schools are still provide a really solid form of education in our country. I think the difficulty is even that number, coupled with the private school number, is still a small number in relation to the greater whole within our country. And I think the greater whole it needs a bit of attention.
Ryan, you're not going to get off the hook. Carrying on from where JP left it, how do you think we rate globally from an education perspective?
Yeah, I think I agree with everything that JP said about, in the primary school, you track your own kids, and obviously you enjoy the great stories that come from, guys that have gone through your system into matric and beyond. I think the Crawford group has worked hard at trying to just track what is happening beyond the matric year. We do have quite a nice success rate with our guys earning scholarships internationally, and managing, and often coming back to South Africa and sort of let's say reinvesting back into their own country or their place where they grew up. I think JP's also touched on it. It can't only be about marks and qualifications and stuff. And I think what is important is the type of person we're putting out into society now. That is as important at the moment than good marks and qualifications and sort of a career that is prescribed. I say that carefully, because there's also a lot of careers that our guys are going to dip into that might not be prescribed yet.
They don't
just
exist yet. Yeah. No, I'm with you. So let me move away from the big stuff and let's go into you as an educator and as a principal. What's the one tool you carry in your toolbox, no matter where you are going, no matter what project you're working on, what role you're playing? What is that productivity hack that you bring with you, Ryan?
Sure, Daniel. I don't know if I'm going to answer this correctly. I think for me,
first, right?
it's the engagement with the kid, getting onto their level, connecting with them. And I think when a child knows that you're on their side, you're batting for them, you've got their back, first of all, they're going to produce better, they're going to be better. But also, you see their shoulders puff up, their chin lifts a bit, and when I can see a child is responding like that, then I think, I think that's what fills me. And then that, helps me wake up the next day and fight the fight again.
Yeah. JP, if you accept what Ryan's saying there, how tough was the 2 years of lockdown and remote schooling?
Yeah, I think Ryan's hit the nail on the head. It's down to relationship, and relationships based on authenticity. And so I think to be authentic across the screen is something that is difficult, and many teachers had to learn. So we especially within a prep environment hold relationship as central to who we are as a school, and I'm sure that'd be the case with most top. Trust their teachers and your teachers to love their kids, and that's really difficult with this thing in front of us. And so I think that's where there's been an impact, the greatest impact. I think you'll find that the impact's elsewhere, absolutely. But I think the opportunity to actually impact a life is done through proximity, through relationship, and I think that was a massive challenge.
Sure. They talk about the next wave being a mental health and a wellness challenge. Those primary students, are you saying that that's the next kind of thing, getting into relational interactions and responsible relationships not being covered up? Are you saying we've got a challenge with that?
So I think it's there are a couple of elements to it, Dan. I think there is that. There's, if for many kids having to learn body language again. The removal of a mask it's incredible the difference that it would make. And I think the sooner that, truthfully, that mandate is removed, the better, certainly for the education space. So I think there is the practical that you've just referred to. I also think there's something a little deeper than that in terms of the emotional robustness that we're now beginning to see. 2 years was a long time, and certainly within a prep space, 2 years is a significant portion of development. And so you've got kids who have entered into a, let's say, beginning of senior prep phase. They're just beginning to understand the world of competition and comparison and not just being a kid in isolation, but a part of a greater whole. And so much of that has been removed. And so now you re-enter them back in at the age of 12 and 13. and it comes as an onslaught to these little guys. So I think that's the second element. I think truthfully, the third element are your teachers. I think your teachers' mental or emotional exhaustion level. I think in many ways teachers have invited their classroom into their lives, and that's been the only way that they can cope to ensure that there's relationship. And I think to gently and subtly redraw those boundaries is difficult. And I think teachers are needing to do that because the demand is now no longer just when you're at school. It's a 24/7 experience. You go to sleep with pinging cell phones and you wake up with pinging cell phones. And that's something that I think we as heads need to start becoming a little more, a little more mindful of, and certainly maybe a little more directive on.
Ryan, how much of your day is in front of a screen, and how much of your day is spent on communicating in this medium versus walking the floor? And is it the right balance?
I'd say probably not the right balance. I'd say a large portion of my day is office bound. It has improved as we sort of move towards the easing of restrictions and stuff. We can now invite parents into face-to-face meetings. There's more face-to-face interactions with teachers or children or both, sort of in an office. I think where the balance isn't right yet is, before COVID, we didn't really do too many online meetings. So your diary was filled with face-to-face meetings, and you can quickly nip off to the bathroom or rush to that classroom, help that kid. Whereas now sometimes you're logging off the one meeting and you're into the next one. And so I think that's that balance that is still a tension. It's definitely improving. I think the people having the screen meetings are also tired and fatigued from it and are looking for the excuses to have face-to-face meetings. So I think we a way to go still, but not quite there yet.
So let me take that into a segue into a technical question. How much of your learners' time is in front of a screen versus how much is off? And I'd like you to carry on with this thought, Ryan, because I know you guys have got programming as something and digital literacy as a forefront for Crawford. So where is that balance?
Yeah, we definitely recognize that online learning catapulted us into that sphere. We were probably tiptoeing around it and not always sort of at that next step of engaging and getting our hands dirty in technology. So yes, we have our digital literacy and our ed tech programs. Now, where we sit now is we've recognized the negatives of online, but we've also seen the positives. So we actually have moved into a blended learning approach. We have a learner management system called Toddle. And what that does for us is it allows us to balance the need of I'll say a traditional classroom, but I don't want a traditional to sound like rows and old ways. But a traditional classroom along with the digital experience and sort of allowing it to enhance the learning experience.
Okay. JP, same question to you. Where are your learners now with regards to digital literacy and how much of their time is spent online versus in person?
Yeah. So Dan, I think Ryan touched on a really important point is that there's an element of the last 2 years that has been really, really good for us. And I think good for education. I think truthfully good for the world. So, historically dads would often miss parent evenings because they're stuck in traffic trying to get home from the office. Now there's a possibility that doesn't have to be the case. And so apologies for getting attacked by hardy dogs. The wisdom in knowing what needs to be on a screen and what doesn't is where the difficult balance comes in, I suppose. So you want to build relationship, but you want to be available to parents to be able to pick you up online. And so which trumps the other? Which value do you hold more closely? And I think the same has been the case in the classroom. There's tremendous value to an online learning, significant range of learning, and yet there's so much that it deprives a kid of. And so we've tried to find that balance, and we've tried to find that balance by trying different approaches in different grades. And so we've got some grades that are maybe slightly more tech heavy, and others that are slightly more traditional in their approach. And we've tried to see where there are benefits. We found a greater sense of independent thought, independent work, and independent learning with the kids that are in a tech-heavy space. And yet they really struggle to write sentences. They really battle to spell. They tend to read quite superficially rather than have a real insight into their reading. And so there is this constant toggle, I suppose, that we as society are facing, and we're seeing that as a microcosm of society within our classrooms. And so I don't know if I've answered the question directly. How much time? I think there's no set number to that. I think we're trying to see what the wise amount of time is in trying to achieve a variety of different goals.
JP, question for you. Programming is a life skill, fact or fiction?
Programming is a language, and so I suppose it depends on whether or not you think language is a life skill. I personally do. So I think I do think it plays an integral part in education. Now, truthfully, what I love about programming, robotics, and coding is less to do with everything techie. I think some people get really excited at the fact that you can move a little robot from one side of the desk to the other. That's not what excites me. There's a massive amount of critical thinking and creativity and problem solving and collaboration. These skills that we speak about as being key to the next century, that takes place in those classrooms. And I think, truthfully, possibly takes place better in those classrooms than it does almost in any other.
Sure.
A language, aside from that, I think that's an added bonus.
Ryan, are you there?
Yeah, I am. Can't disagree with anything JP said. I think he's nailed that answer. I think
that's why you can't. I don't want you to answer any further. Social media has no place in the school. Fact or fiction?
Is that one to me?
Yeah, absolutely, Ryan.
No, there's definitely a place for it. I think. There's different places for it. Let me start that way. In terms of reaching our own parents, in terms of being attractive to families that might not know your school or understand your school, that definitely gives people a peephole into your school, into your environment, into your classroom, onto your sports field. So I do think that is important. I think it would help a parent understand, what makes a school live and breathe. It helps a parent understand the trends that might be happening in a school environment. So there's actually a lot of almost education going through some visuals and videos and photos on social media. And obviously the more likes you get, the marketing people love that. In terms of your students and social media, I think if you take something away and you ban it and all the rest, it becomes quite curious and makes it a child or a student inquisitive. And so they may play with it behind closed doors as opposed to playing with it in the right environment, under the right guidance. We want our children to develop the right skills to understand what that digital footprint means, to know what kind of etiquette is involved. And having said all of that, I know a lot of these platforms do have age restrictions. So, you do have to balance what is right for their age and what is appropriate for their age.
JP, I was going to throw in an unfair question to you, which is, what is the right age to give someone a device of this nature? But I'm not going to. I'm going to ask you a different one. In education, what's changed in the last 10 years fundamentally that your educators are now starting to feel, breathe, and absorb, that we who went through a traditional education wouldn't know about? And what role has tech played in that?
Cheapest Dan, we could be here all afternoon answering that question. I think there's a lot that's changed. A lot of tangibles that have changed. You mentioned the studying of robotics as an example. But I think there's a heightened level, certainly within private schools in South Africa. That's the context we're speaking here. I think there are heightened levels of expectation because I think there's a greater demand being placed on the child to be able to progress to the next stage. So, you want to get a really, really good prep school education so that you're most attractive to the high schools, because the high schools are tremendously expensive. And so, let's see what scholarship or something a high school can offer you. So little Johnny, work hard because you've got to get into high school. The same applies from high school into tertiary education, and then from tertiary education into the workplace. And so I think there is a greater level of expectation. I think that schools themselves have become, private schools have become little businesses. They have to. And so that means that there's a great sense of competition amongst schools. Within our area, 20 years ago, there were maybe 3 or 4 other schools. We probably have 24 within a 5-kilometer radius of us now. And so that's very real. I think, though, maybe the educationally most sound answer is, historically, schools used to be a community place where individuals came to become part of a community. And while schools still hold to that very dearly, I think that we are busy seeing a tipping in the balance of what used to be community focused to what is now individually focused. And so in the past, it used to be, what do I bring to a school? I think increasingly it's now, what does a school offer me? And that's a very big dynamic shift. And I think we're in the process of seeing that change. And that has ripple effects throughout. That has ripple effects into your teaching expectations. That has ripple effects into the quality of education. That has ripple effects into whether they aren't good at it or like doing it. It impacts all different facets of schooling. And I think that's something that we're seeing as a society, but I think within private schools in the northern suburbs of Joburg, we may be feeling it even more acutely.
Sure. Ryan, that leads into your question. If we're accepting that education and your role as educators and what the schools are offering is changing and morphing, where do you self-educate? Where do you keep up to date? Is it podcasts? Is it books? Or is it conferences?
I think sort of time is often an issue, and I think I do take a lot from conferences. I do like that sort of face-to-face engagement. I've done some conferences online, not my best tool to learning, but I think it's that conversation. It's the connection with your colleagues, with your peers, that sort of keeps you on top of things. I'm fortunate enough to have a group of schools, just as JP does, where we've got colleagues that we connect with, and sometimes it might just be that quick phone call or even an email asking. And so that's more in terms of advice. In terms of professional development, there are those online courses. We do engage with those. There's a lot out there, and I think that is what helps us stay connected to global trends. I think it is helping us to close that gap as the world sort of gets smaller because of technology.
JP, same question to you. Where do you self-educate? Where do you see trends coming from, and how do you stay ahead of them?
I don't know if I stay ahead of the pack, but certainly where I self-educate is, I love podcasts. I think what I enjoy about podcasts is you get a really wide variety of podcasts available to you. And so I have a couple that I listen to on runs. I love my running, and so nothing better than sticking earpods in and running for an hour and listening to a podcast or two. So I love doing that.
Now give us three, please. Give us 2 or 3 that we can listen to.
So I love a guy called Pat Lencioni. He does a whole bunch on leadership. Another chap called the Entree Leadership, Dave Ramsey, he also does leadership stuff. And then there's a Modern Classrooms podcast that I think is absolutely brilliant for teachers in particular. And all of them will have kind of expert guests on. I thoroughly enjoy that. So that I listen to in the car, that I listen to on runs. Even sometimes when I should be listening to conferences online. So I think podcasts are great, but truthfully, I think I don't know if there's a sector outside of maybe blockchain and cryptocurrency that is exploding like education is at the moment. Education just has so many different facets to it, and so much learning is taking place. There's an understanding of the child's mind and the child's development that we as society have never had before. And so to find information on it is not difficult. To find good information on it is sometimes a little trickier. But there's so much that we need to consider. So things around kids' identity and so on. That was something that as schools, traditionally, you never had to worry about. But good grief, if you need to worry about that, there are books galore to be able to educate you on that. And I think as teachers, unfortunately or fortunately, we're being asked to become relatively expert in a number of different fields.
Sure, that's that you touch people's lives and you're looking after their children. People take that stuff seriously, so there isn't room for error.
No.
Right, what's on your whiteboard that wasn't there a month ago? What are you and your team dealing with that wasn't there a month ago?
I think we sort of touched on it earlier. The 2 years of restrictions and social distancing. JP was talking about the masks earlier. I think for us, the social distancing has kept people or their peers, the other children, out of your space. And those were the rules. As those start to sort of ease up, and I say that carefully because they are still in existence. The sport is allowed to happen, but we're starting to need to go back to basics. When a child tackles the ball from another kid, suddenly the reaction isn't, gee, well done, that was a great move, I can learn from you. Instead, there's this almost like, you took my ball away from me. And that sounds very obvious to us because we've engaged with sport for many years and we've all coached and so on. But, you take a grade 3 child, they haven't played an official soccer match yet, a school match. Maybe they've done it through club or something. But, in grade 1, we sort of did the summer season. We didn't get into soccer yet. Yeah. And now they're at that place where we got to make sure the basics are there so that we have the right reactions. That's definitely on the radar at the moment. Sort of social behavior is a big one. In terms of exciting things, it's starting to move forward with our own classroom setups. We're starting to explore group work again, where the classroom is a more flexible environment. There's inside the classroom learning, there's outside the classroom learning, and that's sort of what puts the glint back in our eyes as educators.
Yeah,
excellent.
Yeah,
excellent. JP, what's motivating your team at the moment? What's keeping them checked in and keen to go?
So I think it's similar to Ryan that there is a return to normality, and I think that's the goal, a return to normality. I think what we're realizing is that we got very different kids to what we had in 2019, and so we've got kids who ordinarily would have been hugely involved in all things numbers in certain sports, and yet there are other sports where we have an absolute throng of kids that are showing an interest, where competition used to be something that I think we managed relatively well. Kids had a good perspective on what it is to win and lose. Today that perspective seems to have been lost again, and we're re-educating kids, Sanaki's parents, about what it is to win and lose, and I think so the reintroduction of life again is something that we are dealing with, and I think is driving our teachers, bringing them great amounts of joy, and equally forcing them to re-examine what's on their plate. So we, in many ways, shifted off a huge amount of stuff on our plates over 2020 and 2021, and now and replaced it with a whole bunch of new stuff. And now the old stuff is beginning to return, and there's a bit of a decision-making process, a weighing process that needs to happen about what needs to stay and what needs to be chucked.
Sure. And I guess
and I think that's something that is, yeah.
And I guess we have to re-educate the parents to a degree.
I think it's a re-education all round. I don't think the parents are necessarily at fault here, and I don't think the educators are at fault here, and I don't necessarily think the kids are at fault here. We're in a new space. So we're in a space where dad could never come and watch your cricket game. Now he watches your cricket game, but actually he's on the end of a conference call for 30 of the 35 overs, and he misses your wicket and he misses your 50. We've got a teacher who was taking your WhatsApp chats, your Google chats at 10:30 at night, because she was also marking online at 10:30 at night. Now she's saying, "Whoa, hold on a moment. I'm now back with my family because they go to school in the day and I don't get to see them any longer." And so it's all these dynamics where we've got the world of COVID clashing with the world of yesterday, and we've got to plot our tomorrow together, because I think it's the same sense of frustration that the kids are feeling and our parents are feeling.
Sure. I'd really like that. And Ryan, if you had 10 times the budget now, what would you spend it on?
Wow.
Overseas holiday.
Yeah, for myself or the school. Sure, that's quite a question. I think, we're talking a lot of technology here, and I think, back March the 17th, I think it was 2020, we were scrambling. We jumped onto Microsoft and Teams, and we did a quick session with the teachers in the hall. I'm not even sure if we all sanitized in those days, and I looked at the staff and I was like, oh, this might not go so well. And the staff did amazing. I think with the tools they had, we got through it. I think we did a great job. I think in terms of what could I blow money on, I think it would be just upgrading all of that. To give everyone the latest and the greatest in terms of technology. I think it can enhance their lessons and the learning experience for the kids. So I think other than buying more space in Sandton, I think probably that technology is the way to go.
JP, same question. If you had 10 times the budget?
I was hoping you'd ask me, because I think I'd have a slightly different answer to around that, because I think while there is, without a doubt, I mean, the reason we're having this discussion is because of the role that technology now plays in education. It's entrenched. It's a part of who we are, far more than it has ever been. No one's questioning that. I think there's a level of preparation. There's a level of cutting edge that is required, granted. So I don't think what Ryan's saying is wrong at all. Truthfully, I think where the greatest need is in education right now is in the hearts and heads of kids. And I think that there is a demand being placed on teachers that I don't think teachers have ever tasted before. And so if you gave me $10 million, I'd buy $10 million worth of teachers and reallocate my teaching staff in such a way that we can still offer robotics and coding and all things cutting edge, but that we can go back and we can help with articulation of words, because kids can't spell any longer because they haven't seen the difference between a and a. And so they're those little things. There's sports coaches who have got kids who've remained involved in private sports coaching, and they are fit and strong and hungry for for excellence. And we've got the little chap who spent all of lockdown on the couch. And we've got, there is such a range in education today that if we could just have an army that gap, I think we'd make even greater progress in the technological space, because I think kids will be more open to learning.
Now, I said I wasn't going to get into this in the broad strokes, but I read an article in the paper yesterday about, honestly, they're looking at considering importing teachers from north of the border and from off continent, because there are so many teaching posts available and need for teachers. So if you were speaking to a group of varsity students, JP, I'll start with you. How would you convince them to go into education as a profession rather than commerce? And I'm thinking men.
Yeah. So, the first question is, do you have a heart and soul? Because if the answer to that is no, then commerce is the place. No, I'm joking. No, what I would say genuinely is I think, so let's talk just guys. Guys believe in legacy. Guys believe in leaving a footprint. And there is no footprint in my mind that comes close to the footprint left in a person's life. And now more than ever, kids need meaningful footprints left in their life. Kids need their gaze lifted. Kids need their hearts shaped. Kids need their minds ignited, because there is such a new space that they are navigating. And what better legacy to leave than to have a couple dozen, a few hundred, a couple thousand kids going through your hands, and you being able to leave an imprint on their lives.
Ryan Haigh.
Yeah, I like what JP said. I think when you initially asked the question, my thought was the idea of mentoring and being a person of influence. To have every day of your career, of your job, to be different to the day before. No day is ever the same. To not be driven by content and turn to this page and let's learn this off by heart. We've moved away from that. We're a lot more child-centered now. Students lead their own learning. It's a job, it's a career. So sure, you get paid at the end of the month, but it's way more than that. And I think that's why at the end of these 2 years, we've seen how teachers have almost buried themselves because they're so passionate about their jobs. They want to make a difference. They want to be there for every kid that they have under their within their hands. And I think it's a great job. It's just bottom line.
I did cheat. I know both of you, and I know you've both taught over the waters, and you've come back and made your homes and your lives in Africa and in South Africa, and I want to honor you for that. And I'd like to thank you for the time that you take and that you've put in. It's quite funny, Ryan, if you go to your school, who's opening the hall? No, Ryan Haigh's opening the hall, and who's doing traffic control? It's Ryan Haigh, and who's at the tuck shop? It's Ryan Haigh. And when you go to Heronbridge, Mr. Lubbe's here, Mr. Lubbe's there, Mr. Lubbe's everywhere, and you guys really live that spirit. And as a parent myself, I can't thank you enough for being in a great profession. And from a South African perspective, we need more and more of it. Thank you for giving us 45 minutes of your time. Thank you for not getting struck by lightning, either of you, because I know there's storms coming through on your side. And we wish you all the best for the remainder of 2022. We know that the changes are coming thick and fast in education. And for you who believe that education is still being done the same way as it was in the 80s, you have to visit a school for a day, a week, or a month, just to see how much more our teachers are doing and how much more is expected. So from me, Daniel Robus, I'd like to thank both of you, Heronbridge and Crawford, for giving us some time, and thank you for flying the flag. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you both at Comrades.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Daniel.